All right. It may not be the new year yet, but it is the new season of the Harold Katz podcast, episode 1 of season 2. Glad you could join us over in Glickman and Kiva Poppers. And of course, Coach, needing no introduction, but we love to give it to him anyway. I'm excited for this guest as someone who's yearned for a career in sports my entire life. It's going to be very interesting to hear this conversation. So, Coach, please take it away.
Thank you, Oren, Bob. Thank you for whatever you're doing here. And for me, this is a big thrill. Um, Adam Neuman, who is officially the what, Adam?
A chief of staff and special advisor.
Chief of staff and special advisor to the president of the Baltimore Ravens, right?
That's right.
And a team I know you grew up rooting for because you went to school with both my sons, our twins.
Yes. Well, I also went to school with your other sons too. Just to be clear, your youngest son Donnie was
that's true.
Really always out of class shooting basketball on broken hoops. So yeah,
that is true. So this is a big thrill for me, just because I think we have pictures of Adam at our son Yisrael's and Shai's, I don't know, third or fourth birthday party or something. And I was going to bring him on here and embarrass you, but you have position, so I'm not going to do it. So it's a big thrill for me for quite a few reasons. The first of which is obviously I've basically known you. What is your life right now? Your whole life right now, but God willing, there's another 80 years or so. So that's a big thrill for me. And I wanted to welcome you first before we got into anything else, and then just discuss why exactly I wanted you on the show of all people. So thanks for coming on and giving us your time.
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's in some ways like a full circle moment, playing so much basketball with you and your kids. And I mean, it's just I just feel like I know the house, the family so well. It's just really neat to be here. And then, kind of bonding over YU basketball too over the last, give or so years since, Elliot's taken the helm there, and the incredible things that, Donnie's team was doing with that team, and how that brought so many people together too. And just so much pride from YU basketball these days. And I know how influential this group has been with that too, including Glickman and, Poppers too.
Thank you. They have had a really big role in that, especially Pop. He's way more famous than all of us now. So, but for me, I wanted, what we usually do in this podcast is it's not like a fan podcast. It's kind of like we try to get deeper into things that most fans wouldn't know, fans of basketball or fans of athletics in general. So let's just kind of go back, take one step back, give us a little bit of your background and how you got where you got, and then let's kind of stop at the Big Ten for a little bit. But why don't you tell everybody how you got to where you got?
Yeah, sure. To me, it starts back, in Baltimore, being raised here, and coming from a normal middle class family. Sundays just meant playing sports, and Wednesday nights meant watching sports. That's sort of all I knew and all we did. And if we didn't, play an official sport, we made up a sport. So that's just sort of physical activity was just what we did, what we breathed. I remember our carpool drivers started putting towels in their cars because they thought it was so disgusting. We'd come at 5:30 and just pouring sweat in their cars, and they were probably right. But the way I like to think about it is that, in a small town, which has clearly become increasingly bigger, like Baltimore, I just felt like I would go from Shabbos table to Shabbos table and hear people just complain about their jobs all the time. And they'd say things like, "Thank God it's Shabbos." And I knew it wasn't because like they were hearing the beautiful Harold Katz davening Shacharis at the wonderful shul on Park Heights Avenue. But it was really because they were just sick of their day job. They just hated it so much. And that never squared with me ever. I don't think I was thinking about that many things in high school, but I remember even growing up just thinking like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like between eating and sleeping and working, that's like your whole life. And you're going to decide that like, you're going to embark on something that like maybe pays the bills, but you don't really enjoy it. Like that didn't really make any sense for me. And I pause here usually and just say like, and I won't qualify that much during this podcast because I don't feel like we need to, but there are a lot of people that works for, and that's fine. You want to go be an investment banker and, make money, and that's awesome. And you love it, and you can afford a rich car or do something cool with it. That's great. And if that's your passion, even better. But for me, I wanted to do something that I liked. And I think sports uniquely has an ability to cross across boundaries that other things can't do. And it's just a fact. I like to say to people, and I know you'll appreciate this, Coach, you can kind of know if someone played organized sports like within the first 2 minutes of meeting them. Like it's different. They know how to win. They know how to lose. They know what it means to like really, really push harder than they ever thought they could. They know what pouring sweat really means like. And I think that's just what I wanted to be involved in. I didn't know exactly what, who, how, but I knew I wanted to do that. Left Baltimore and studied in Israel for 2 years, came to Yeshiva University, was very active in student council, linked up with the president at the time, Richard Joel. We became very close. He offered me a good old $24,000 to work at Yeshiva University. I lived with 4 guys above Chop Chop Chinese. It smelled like Chop Chop Chinese, which was honestly amazing for me. I considered that a benefit of the building that they should have advertised, but that's what it was. I knew how unique the opportunity would be through there. I connected with Mark Wilf, who owned the Minnesota Vikings. He, through the help of Allison Rubin and Dan Foreman and Richard Joel, Josh Joseph, others, helped me get an internship with the Vikings, which was $7 an hour. And I stayed in a $32 motel room every night in Eden Prairie, Minnesota, on and off for 3 years throughout law school at the University of Pennsylvania. And it was there I just even realized it even more. It was just so great to be in that environment amongst people that just really understood the value of sports and how it uplifted communities. Those were kind of really the only priorities in football teams. It was like winning Super Bowls and giving back to the community. I can definitely get behind that. And, we all remember those iconic moments. Like everybody knows where they were when Kobe Bryant dies. Like everybody knows where that is. I used to say, in my former job, the founder of Google is a Maryland alum, so a Big Ten alum. And, if he passed away, that'd be terrible. And he formed maybe one of the best inventions in the history of the world, Google. Like we all know what Google is, but if he passed away, that would be a 3-day news cycle. Like that wouldn't be much at all. But like Kobe is like the Mamba mentality, and everybody's thinking about Kobe on a daily basis. So I think that just articulated to me how powerful sports was, my time at the Vikings, and was fortunate to create a really good relationship with Kevin Warren, who was a deeply religious person, and at that time, the highest ranking African-American on the business side of sports. And I was lucky. He was agnostic to faith and age, and all he cared about was like, can you do the job? Like a very Belichickian type of attitude, which I really was up for. And it didn't matter like how old you are, what you looked like. If you could do it, you could do it. He didn't care about the title. Like that didn't matter to him. And I think that's why he's had so much success. And I was able to really do things as a legal intern that I don't think most legal interns were able to do. And we can get into that later, just kind of talking about competition in the workplace. But I mean, I was one of 6 interns. I'm not sure the other interns are working in sports anymore. They just didn't either capitalize or make the most of that. You had to really keep going. You can't stop. You always have to have your foot on the gas. And I think I did. And didn't get a job at the Vikings, but took a job at a law firm, and just sort of always wanted to be like that sticky note in Kevin's mind. Like if I move or if I have an opportunity, I'm going to think about this kid. And that's what happened. And he became the commissioner of the Big Ten. He called me. I left my law firm. I went to the Big Ten for 4 years. He recently became the president of the Chicago Bears. I was looking to get back into professional sports after a really amazing, incredible experience in 4 years at the Big Ten, where we did some really monumental changes in television and expansion and things with mental health and with diversity, and just a really wonderful experience at the Big Ten, but sort of wanted to be back in pro football. And this opportunity kind of came to be. And that's where I am tonight on September 5th, about 7 weeks in, here back in Baltimore, kind of a whirlwind, wearing gear that I paid for in 7th grade that now works just as fine, is a pretty cool feeling. I'll tell you this, I have a friend named Bill Schlow. He's the senior vice president of technology for the San Francisco Giants. And I think he's an athletics fan, but now he's a Giants fan. He has 3 World Series rings. People forget how good the Giants were with Mad Bum and those teams. And I saw one of his rings once, and it was incredible. It was like made by Tiffany's, probably like $100,000. He was on the executive team, so he had this incredible ring. And I said to him, I'm like, what's it like winning with your home team? Because I knew he's from the Bay Area. And he kind of looked at me and was like, I still feel like the Athletics, because everybody still feels like that initial team they had. Here's a guy who has done incredible things out in San Francisco, 3 rings, but still sort of yearns for those days with the Athletics. So to be back in Baltimore with a team that you rooted for, that you watched 2 Super Bowls, is pretty unique, pretty interesting. And I think gives me a leg up in the building because I really know the community and what's expected sort of the community, and also just the attitude sort of the city, which is really important in a small competitive environment. But that's me. And it's good to be here tonight.
Appreciate your comment, and that was great. I did want to ask you a couple questions. Where were you when Stephon Diggs scored that touchdown in the playoffs when that guy couldn't close out?
I was not invited to that game. That's where I was.
Were you with Minnesota?
I was with them in some capacity, but I wasn't like in that building for the Minneapolis Miracle. That would have been great. Not as much glory always.
What's that?
I said you don't always get so much glory as the intern, So I wasn't in that building.
I say this a lot on this podcast because we talk X and O's all the time, and one of the things I always say is the hardest thing to do in sports is to close out. And as somebody who's watched you defend ever since you were in bitty basketball, you could probably verify the hardest thing for somebody to do is to close out. And one of the things I used to prove it is that play when Stephon Diggs, all you have to do is tackle him.
Yep.
All you gotta do is knock him out of bounds. Game's over. There's no time on the clock. I mean,
that's Kevin Dyson, right? Right. That's all he had to do. You just tackled him at the 1 with the Rams.
Yeah, oh no, yeah, with the Rams, you mean? Yeah, that's true. All you have to do is make the play. Like, just be fundamental, close out. It's Case Keenum, I think, so he's not throwing it over you.
He's not throwing it over you.
So all you got to do is make the play. It's in front of you. And one of the hardest things to do in basketball is to close out. And they couldn't close that out, and they ended up missing out on what could have been a Super Bowl appearance. And I think players don't really understand how hard it is to close out, and why reversing the ball and forcing closeouts in basketball is so important. We had Bruce Pearl on a couple months ago. It was an awesome interview. And one of the things Bruce said, which I kind of disagree with, is like ball reversal. He's like, take the first shot you get. But on the flip side of that, I think he did say, you want to close out because you got to take care of your closeouts, which kind of is a little bit of, on the offensive end, you want to force closeouts. On the defensive end, you want to make sure the ball doesn't reverse. So you can limit the long closeout, if you know what I'm talking about. So we talk about that a lot, and that's why I asked the question, because all he had to do was close out. But I want to take you back to the Big Ten for a minute, because you know what? Forget that. Let's go to the Vikings. I want to ask you one question when you talk about that. So you lived in Minnesota, and were you there on weekends, or were you back in Philadelphia?
No, I was usually there for weekends for that period of time. I would try to get to St. Louis Park before Shabbos if I could, but I wasn't able always to make it just because of commitments or just what felt like.
So tell me, so what happens? Because like I said, I used to have to do that where I was traveling on the road, and we would play Saturday night or something, and I'd have to be there 24 hours, 25 hours earlier. So you end up staying in your hotel room. How does that work?
Yeah, it's just lonely. Is really the real way to say it. It's like a real profound loneliness. It's like just sad. In the winter, it's even sadder because it's so freaking cold outside. You can't even. A Minneapolis summer is beautiful, but in the winter, in January, February, I mean, it's just a long 24 hours. It's a long Friday night. You try to go to sleep as early as possible and wake up and just kind of hope the day goes away. But certainly a sacrifice I don't think most people are willing to make. Certainly not.
Or it was fair, Adam. I don't think most people understand. Like it's easy to say, well, yeah, you just stay in the hotel room. A lot of people will do that with their spouse or friends or something, and they'll go to a hotel for the weekend, but they don't really understand what it's like. I'm sleeping on campus at Catholic University in their guest house.
Yeah.
And we don't play till, the winter time, 6:00 on Saturday night. So right after Shabbat, and you're you're there at 3 p.m. with your Shabbos food and whatever you're planning on. It's a very long and lonely night. Now, for me, my kids were home. My wife was home, so it was a little. You're a single guy at that point, right? Were you
Yeah.
single? So, like for me, it's that ache that you talk about, that the loneliness that you talk about, it's a little greater because but either way, it sucks in either circumstance. But at the same time, you have to tell people sometimes what you stand for and what you won't stand for. And you kind of had a good break with Kevin, I think. So then you go to the Big Ten, and this is unique to us because we experienced the Sweet 16 that year, the COVID year.
Yeah, you guys were ahead of everybody's schedule. We were in the middle of conference tournaments, so we hadn't even engaged in the dance, so to speak. But y'all were ahead, really, really close to finishing up.
Right. I believe you're in Chicago.
Yeah.
Right at the stadium or whatever it's called.
We were in Indianapolis actually at I think it was Indianapolis that year.
Oh, okay. Was that at
That's where the Big Ten tournament was that year. Yeah.
At the big joint?
In like where the Pacers play.
Lucas Oil's. Oh, okay. Market Square or whatever the new one's called or whatever.
I can't remember what's called.
Yeah. So it's the first half of the Michigan game, maybe?
It sounds familiar. Yeah. I think it was like Nebraska was playing because I remember their coach got sick in the middle of the game.
And
Scary.
I'm pulling up to the driveway. I mean, the parking lot in Virginia. And I text you, or you text me maybe, right?
Yeah, I think we were texting each other because I had my staff was like watching the YU basketball games in our suites, which was so funny because people just were so into it. And Yoni Cohen sent us gear, so I had given out a lot of YU gear to people, and I think you had just beaten like Penn State's affiliate or something. Right. And I'm worried that like, oh, does that matter? Like Big Ten. They're like, nah, bullshit. That's not Big Ten. Like it's Penn State. God knows what. That's not the real Penn State. Like we can root for Yeshiva. And people were really into it. And that team was really good. Like they moved the ball so well.
Guarded it.
As a great team.
Defended it, rebounded it, and
did it all. And I don't know where you guys will stand on this. I don't want to get too. I feel like I can't get in trouble for stuff like this, but I felt like that was like Ofek's best year. I don't know if anyone else agrees with me.
I'd agree with that, and there's a reason why I think, because when you put your scouting report together, and you have to deal with Ryan, Sim, Gabe, Donnie, Eitan, Ofek. Yep. So Ofek's not on the top of your scout. He's kind of 5, 6, 7 guys in. Well, you're getting defender number 5, 6, 7 on that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and that allows, and then he played with really high IQ players at the time who kind of really kind of kept everybody together. A lot of things, a lot of ins and outs people don't know about it, but I agree with you. I think that was his best year because he was allowed to just play.
Exactly. You just took the words out of it. I just remember there was a great cut he had. I think he dunked actually. And I was like, whoa, like, which I think he was like resistant to doing like a little bit, couple years in, like he just didn't have the hops or he wasn't, he just was playing.
People. He didn't just want to dunk. He wanted to dunk on people. I was
like, who's this kid with curly hair? Like, what's he up to?
I remember in the preseason, not in the preseason, but early in the year where I was up there for a game and I'm kind of talking to him. And the other team walks in. He looks at me, he goes, "Coach, that guy right there." And I go, "Well, what about that guy?" He goes, "I'm dunking on him tonight." And I think he caught a break. He almost got the guy. It was kind of cool. But like you're right. He had the freedom to do that because you have to deal with Simcha and Ryan and Gabriel and Eitan. You just have so much, and Ofek. And you just have so much to deal with, and if you sleep on Donnie, you're going to get hurt. So I thought we were the best team in America. I'm sure Randolph-Macon thought they were, and the other 14 teams may have thought they were. but we'd watched them all and knew we were a massive problem because of Ryan. So that's why from the parking lot in the whatever we were,
Yeah,
and yeah, getting the text of like you shut down at halftime, right?
yeah, we did.
And like as soon as I heard you shut down at halftime, this was not going to take long for Emmerich to do something about it.
Just, yeah, close it all out. I think, sort of once in 100 year kind of thing, just shutting out a lot of people's expectations. I know the local Maryland basketball had high expectations, although I don't think they would have done very well with Cowan and Smith either. But that was a good year for them. I think they won the Big Ten. So they got
But
it.
so, all right, so tell me what happens after that, Adam. So we maybe 20 minutes later, Mark Emmerich shuts everything down. But I kind of saw it coming because of you were texting me. But what's the aftermath of that in the Big Ten office?
I think it's like a somber one. It's like, you want to compete. You have sports so that people can play. That's like the goal of the conference. Like the number one thing is to provide an avenue for people to play sports. That's why they came to these schools, was to play sports.
Right.
So, you don't want to be in a situation where you can't allow that. But, there were so many bigger things. And I think we knew that at the time, like just the amount of people that were calling us, from the president of the United States to senators, God knows what. It's just, it's sort of out of your control. Like, you're not going to be making the final decision, which, by the way, is a huge problem in college sports to begin with. Like, there's just so many parties that are at the table that it's very, very difficult to make any decisions on anything. And that can be from the transfer portal to transgenderism to antitrust exemptions to should we siphon off football and basketball to non-revenue generating sports to faculty.
Yeah, Adam, let's get into that. Where do you fit in? And maybe give us maybe your most I don't want to say complicated day, but the busiest day in regards to, or the busiest week in regards to all of that when you're in the Big Ten, because um, uh, obviously now they've expanded to West Coast and all that stuff, but you're no longer 10 teams, right? You're larger than that. I don't know what I think it's
They'll be 18 in August of next year.
right. So what was it when you left? 12?
14.
14, and still called the Big Ten, right?
Yeah, they'll keep the name.
Yeah. So what's, and now there's 14 teams that want your ear. So tell me, what's your job for Kevin is exactly, you're his assistant?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on like how you look at it, but the job is really to work with athletic directors at 14 universities on policies that work for the schools. And from a monetary standpoint, they're pretty much all better together, except for Notre Dame, that works on its own for the most part. And the reason they're better together is a variety of reasons. One is scheduling. It's really much easier to schedule when you have a unit of people that are all working together on that schedule, and it's complicated with all the travel and operations that go into that. But when you start pooling the TV money and giving them out in chunks, it's still better than a school going out on its own and having to deal with everything on its own. So even if Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State bring in more money for the conference, which again, everybody knows they do, they still benefit from having someone like Maryland and Minnesota, A, on the schedule, B, to, work out that collegiate part. We're all colleges, we're in it together. And then also just to take that TV money and divide it up. But I think people still know like sort of who's calling the shots. Like there are athletic directors that are more influential and are going to be more pissed off if they're not being heard than other ones. And I think everyone's kind of on board on that, which is a little bit different than in professional sports.
Right. So are you allowed to give us some idea what kind of money we're talking about?
In terms of what?
Like each school, when we divvy up,
Yeah, I mean,
money coming from NCAA basketball, or is it coming from NCAA football, or both?
the money's mostly coming from football. The basketball money is really going to the NCAA for the most part. Now they kick it out to other things, but that's what March Madness is, those 3 weeks that, they're making all that money. But the money's really 95% football. It's really just college football is all the money. Now, anything that's like butts and seats. So like Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan have the 3 largest stadiums in the country. So they're all over 110,000. So they're each taking in revenue from just people paying money to come to that game. So that's a ton of money. But the TV money that comes on is a result of very intense negotiations, typically between the major players now are like Amazon, Apple, NBC, CBS, Fox, of course, ESPN.
Right.
And they're kind of leveraging their assets to say, like, how can we cover this, and who gets the first pick and first choice of games and at what time slots. And the reason they make money because they put it on TV, and advertisers pay them a lot of money based on what the engagement's like. And then they figure out how much, Listerine makes by putting a Listerine TV commercial. So, I mean, I'm on record always saying that I think that 99% of my job I could teach to an 11th grader, like a really high level 11th grader that's willing to work really, really hard. But it's sort of like on that 1% that you get judged, that those like really tough decisions that are really hard to figure out and navigate. But like for the most part, I mean, you're talking to athletic directors, you're talking to university presidents. With presidents, you're usually educating them on what they don't know, which is a lot. It's sort of a thankless job, and they're teaching classes and they're dealing with faculty, and they don't know that a match between two wrestling players is called a duel. And I don't know that they know all their student athletes' names. Like they don't know the nomenclature. They don't know those things. But they're in charge. And I think that's also one of the major problems of college sports is you have presidents in charge of sports that they're not experts in. And if I said to you, like, you want to have a board of people that are watching over your welfare, I don't know that you would pick people that are so busy and so removed and by nature are like academicians. Like they're engineers. They're not like, but those are the people that are on the NCAA's board. Those are the people that are on the Big Ten board, and really, really challenging to wrestle with them to figure out what's best for sports from a college level. I mean, and then you throw in expansion, which basically has said regionality doesn't matter anymore. And, rivalries don't matter as much anymore. It's really about pocketing money. And then it's the Wild Wild West. And you have right now the Pac-12 left with two teams. I mean, that's crazy. It's the Conference of Champions.
Right. So Ohio State's playing Penn State. Penn State's on the road. Ohio State's drawing 100,000. And how is that a 70-30 split? What's the split on that?
I can't speak to the exact splits, but it really is actually heavier. The split is more heavy towards the home team. They'll take most of it actually because the TV money is what's split, which is where the biggest check is. But from
that's what I'm saying. Can you speak about the TV money, or really not allowed to?
Yeah, I mean, the TV money is just, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, the Big Ten has a deal with NBC, CBS, and Fox for $8 billion over the next 7 years. So it's over $1 billion a year. So $1.5 billion a year, you divide by 15 or 16 or 18. Now, not every school gets the exact same share always, but you're talking about roughly in the neighborhood in the next few years, every Big Ten school will receive between $80 and $100 million a year, tax-free, of course. So I mean, that's a lot of money. Now, remember, the Big Ten is 28 sports. Not every school sponsors 28 sports, but like, let's say you sponsor 26. I mean, most of them are not making money. So like an interesting proposition to think about is people always say like, well, just pay them what they're worth. So I'm always like, well, pay them what they're worth. Well, why don't you tell the women's lacrosse team that they all owe money back to the school because they're losing money every single year. Oh, wait, they just won the national championship. So like, you're starting to wonder like, well, what's important? Is it how much revenue you're bringing in, or is it how much, championships you're winning, or what is the proposition of college sports? It doesn't exist anywhere except for America. There is no college sports in Israel. There's no college sports in Australia. So like, what is the purpose of intercollegiate athletics? I think you see the purpose better in Division III actually than you see it in Division I.
I talk about it a lot, about the fading student athlete. Like the student athlete is basically, if you want to see what the founders of the NCAA probably thought about, Division III basketball.
I agree.
That's what they were thinking. Kids would come to school, get an education, play ball, but get education. And then all of a sudden, the education that you're giving me is no longer worth anything. So I need an NIL or something like that, or I need to get paid, or and I as the culture shifted to a more what's in it for me kind of culture. I think that's where you saw and I'm of the opinion that at some point Division III basketball is just going to be a rich kid's sport, unless state schools notwithstanding. Like in some places it costs you 50-60 grand to go to school a year, who are playing Division III basketball, so or athletics, soccer or lacrosse, whatever it is. And so at some point soon, something's going to have to be done on that level, or it's just going to be, if you can afford to come here, So I agree with you. Uh, I think Division III basketball is kind of where the core of what they wanted to do was, and I think television money, like it does to everything else, just messed with it too much.
I think what we
Like,
saw with YU, like during those years, like, and I think still, but a little bit more so probably a few years ago, to be frank, I think uplifting a community, putting buzz around campus, having people from all different sects of life entering a gym for free or for $5 and just really enjoying it. Halftime, getting a Powerade in the gym. Like that's, I think,
right.
a much better model of what it should look like than folks that really just want to be professional. And God forbid, I'm not blaming the athletes. I mean, maybe they should just be professionals. Now, remember, the professional leagues are incentivized to push it to college, so they have more time to scout these kids and watch them play and sort of watch them fail. I think about the Harrison twins because I, of course, thought they were going to Maryland, and then they went to Kentucky, and and they did great at Kentucky. Actually, I think they won a championship. I think Cal's only championship there, which is also surprising.
They
But
played with the eyebrow, right?
yeah. They played with Anthony Davis, yeah, and it was a good team, great team. But I think, and again, I'm not a scout. Something happened in that college years where those two 6'5" kids from Texas, it was clear to most scouts these are not top 10 picks. These are second rounders at best. I don't think either of them are in the league anymore.
Right.
But that was a good thing for, if you think about it, for, I don't know, the Washington Wizards, because maybe they would have taken Andrew Harrison at 5 had they not seen him play at Kentucky, and then suddenly they can sort of move him out.
Well, Adam, another thing that the pros want to do with those kids is they don't want kids coming in at 19 and have no fundamentals.
Exactly.
They want you to come in at 22 and you've gone through college and you're assuming you played for Roy Williams for 4 years, or you played for Rick Pitino for 4 years, or you played for on a girl's side Gino Oriemo for 4 years, like or Calhoun for 4 years. You're playing with guys who are Majerus, who are fundamental teachers, and then Keith Van Horn comes to the league and then plays for a decade and a half.
Yeah.
And that's why you get kids like Jonathan Bender, who comes straight from high school.
I remember that. Yep.
Had no fundamentals, I mean, even guys playing that, it's almost like the NBA now is just giving up on the fundamentals part of it. It's just, okay, we're just going to deal with these teenagers when they get in here. And, it's like James Wiseman, as good as he is, how much better would he have been if he just stayed in school for a couple? But how do you ask a kid like that to turn down, $15 million or whatever it is to go play when he has no money at home? And, so then the NBA teachers are coaches are kind of like, now we got to teach these kids. And this is a reverse pivot that you should have learned in 7th grade. But you were getting sneaker money from Adidas or whatever, so you played on that team, and they didn't teach it to you. You know what I mean? So I think there's that when you really dig into it. You mentioned Kobe before; he hated AAU basketball, and when you really listen to guys, like Robert Ory or Tracy Murray, I think I heard him. Well, I mean, a lot of guys just hate it because it's nothing but college athletics and Division I basketball, and you're doing this with 15, 12, 13-year-olds, 10-year-olds, and everybody skips the most important step, which is learn how to play. Everybody forgets this about Michael Jordan. I've said this on this podcast before. Michael Jordan was about as good as you're ever going to get in basketball, but what everybody forgets about him was every time he caught it, he was basically in triple threat. Every time he took you off the dribble, his shoulders were at your hips. Like, he was the most fundamental guy in the league. Kobe ended up being the most fundamental guy in the league.
Yeah.
And when you skip that process, so then you get,
jacked up. I totally agree. You get really jacked up. And I think also, like, what we haven't touched upon is also like the emotional maturity. I mean, people don't understand like what it's like to like have a job and have a paycheck and like I've spent a lot of time with college athletes that like, dude, they can't pay rent, not because they don't have the money. They don't know how to pay rent, dude. They don't know how to like sign up on certain, like, I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. Like there's like an emotional maturity that needs to be developed, and to go at such a young age and just become a pro. And I see this at the Ravens in particular. Like, I mean, there's no time for like, let's baby you into this. I mean, we had 90 guys in the facility 4 days ago, and now we're down to 53. So that was a tough day for a lot of people. And there was no holding hands. There was no kumbaya. There was no, let me take you over to the side and help you find another practice squad with a different team.
Right.
So when you decide that you're leaving and you're going to the pro world, you better be expected to be treated like a pro, and you better
Right.
carry yourself like a pro, or you're going to get hammered. I mean,
Ask,
real
ask
fast. And
Wander,
it's not going to be like it was at the University of Maryland.
right. Ask Wander Franco about that. So I think
Yeah.
you, I
Yeah.
think you, I think you hit on a great point, Adam, and it's something. Um, I'm going to expand it a little bit. You tell me if this has been your experience in the last few years, both with the Big Ten and now in your short time with the Ravens. But I almost think it's harder to communicate with kids today because they don't really talk to you face to face. They really live on their apps, and so it's hard to engage a lot of guys in college because of that. I think it's a little different at YU simply because it's a double curriculum school, and there's a lot of other factors that go on because it's Jewish. It's a little different, but I would say they suffer from the same malaise, I think. And am I wrong about it? Like I think college coaches have a much harder time now talking to their players or communicating with their players. I wouldn't say it's harder time. It's just a lot more work than it used to be at least 30 years ago or 40 years ago. But you find that in the pros too, where communication's a little more um, haphazard a little bit.
I think it's much better in the pros. I think it comes with that emotional maturity. I think they know what they're doing, what they want to be doing. I'm sure there's different mechanisms and modalities and the way that they have to reach kids. But I think, even someone like Coach Harbaugh, who's been around the league for 15 years, I think is having a lot of success, even with younger guys. But the Ravens also are known to invest in very specific types of guys. I mean, they're not just drafting people based on talent. They want a certain personality, they want a certain attitude. And the Ravens, and there are a lot of teams like that have a certain way about them. I think part of it's Baltimore being very blue collar. There's just a certain way around here. There's not really tolerance for like divas in Baltimore, which I think is a great thing. I think on the college level, you're 100% right. And I think it's getting really tough to deal with this culture of entitlement. I think it's just really tough. I mean, my nephew's on a travel baseball team, and they have warm-up music for each kid. They got their names on the back of their jerseys. And I'm sitting there like, what? Names on the back of your jerseys? Like I wore like a undershirt to play football and in like fifth grade. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you need a warm-up song? Like, all I do is win. All you do is you're not that good. That's really what I want to say. Like, I don't even know how you're even on the travel team. The travel team back when I was there was really good. Like they were good. Everyone's, I guess, on the travel team. So in that vein, like you get these kids that come to these schools, especially with some of these old school coaches that you mentioned, and like it's just a drag because they're expecting kids that want to show up and work because that's just kind of the right thing to do, right? That's just like the way it ought to be.
Right.
But it's not like that. It's like you need to convince them that you're worth investing in. And it's like, no, you should be privileged to be working, with a Coach K. You should be privileged to be working with, someone like Jim Calhoun or Elliot Steinmetz. And I think when you're a coach, especially in college nowadays, where there's no salary cap, sort of equalizing what's going on, you sometimes take chances on these kids that, you're going to have trouble relating to because of the talent. I mean, I think Penny Hardaway struggled with that. Again, that's from a distance. I don't know that guy from a hole in the wall, but I think some of the kids that he's recruited, he kind of thought, oh, I'll turn it around because they're really talented. And it just didn't work because you can't do that. Like if the kid is not interested and motivated, I don't care how good they are. It's not going to work. I mean, you saw Connecticut win last year with just what looked like a great system. I mean, it just looked like it worked. Every game you watched, you're like, wow, is there anyone that's that good on that team? Is there? I don't think so.
I mean, is there any pro that Stephen Smith would go on TV and say, well, that guy's a pro? I remember Villanova, Carolina, right? Didn't he say there were no pros on Villanova and now 7 of them went to the league because they knew how to play?
Yeah, exactly.
he went on TV and said, well, Carolina got this pro, that pro, that pro. Villanova got none. And then Hart ends up hitting the shot to beat him. I think that was his name, right?
I think it was
And
Jones.
who was it?
Chris Jones?
Is that who hit that shot?
It was the bigger kid from Maryland, I think. Maybe not
could be.
Jones, Chris, whatever. Jenkins.
Thank you. So whoever, but 7 of them are playing in the league.
Yes.
And so, right. And like, because you have an old school guy like Jay, who
Yep.
kind of old school stuff, and guys weren't one and done. He didn't
No
really
entitlement. Let's just play basketball. We want to work every hour we can. We love each other.
right. So then that's that. So I think back to the college kind of paradigm. Did you you wouldn't get this because it's not like in high school where they're bitching about Coach Izzo or something. But would your office have to handle questions like that? Like, would you have to go to an AD and say, hey, we heard this thing about your coach and altercation with a player? Did you ever get any?
We got a lot of that. I mean, you think about, again, like what a league does. And I think that's also what's been cool about my career, or why this was, I think, a good step for me. Also, like, the Big Ten's a conference. So it's like a league.
Right.
The NFL is a league. The MLB is a league. Like, this is a team. So they have very different priorities. They're very structured. The Ravens, the world centers around the Ravens. The Bengals, the world centers around the Bengals. The league is sort of trying to make everything work. So when you're at the league and you see a coach saying something really stupid, or he's touching a kid, or he's doing something like that, like, the league has to kind of come down on it. The Ravens, if they saw the Bengals doing that, they'd probably be like, well, I don't know. That's not us. It's not our culture. That's not our problem. That's not how we do things. We have a nutritionist, like, I don't care that they don't have a nutritionist. So there's kind of like that very disengaged piece. I think teams can control who they are more, and also can get off the deep end more, as you saw with like the Commanders, for example. But as a league, yeah, we had a lot of stuff like that, like dealing with coaches that were just, you see what's happening at Northwestern, which happened right after me with hazing and things like that. You saw obviously what happened with Larry Nasser and gymnastics. He was at Michigan State. We saw what happened with Joe Paterno and Jerry Sandusky at Penn State. I mean, Big Ten's definitely had its share of, major A+ scandals in the last 10 years.
And how does is that one of those things where you're driving to work and just going, oh, I do not want to deal with this guy today. Like, I do not want to deal with this reporter calling about this issue, or that reporter, or 50 like that. Today is not the day. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, there's a lot of that. During expansion, I was on like a honeymoon in Italy, and my phone was just off the hook because everybody wanted to break it. Who's coming? When are they coming? Why are they coming? Why would they come? And it's just sort of part of the job, and, I try to like take a step back and like just look for like blessing in all of it. Like, people are interested in what I would consider a day job. For me, it really is. It's what I do every day. I drive to work like everybody else. I go to the bathroom like everybody else. I go to meetings and learn about KPIs and analytics and data and what we should be doing differently, and culture and like, we do the same stuff. Just the subject matter is so fascinating, and people are so gravitating towards it that you kind of just, you try to stay real about it and just remember that like, this is a great thing and it's really fun, and that's why you're in it, even though it's challenging and very, very public. And that's been hard for me on some levels, just very, very public. And as I think I've gotten older, I've become more private, and I think that's become hard for me, just to kind of separate those lives. People think they have like access to everything and they want things, and you don't really know why or how or if, and you just have to have your guard up a little bit more just in this business, which I've heard from a lot of people.
I mean, from my perspective, you were quite wound up. You and that whole group you went to school with were quite wound up.
Yeah, for sure.
Did some things that probably should stay private. And
100%. I agree.
I could tell you from our perspective as a parent, my perspective as a parent, I know I speak for my wife and other parents in the group of guys that were there. It was the greatest thing for our kids to just have somebody like you, and I'm hoping for you to have them, and obviously your other friends that we don't need to mention here, but that it's a cool thing. And then I appreciate the fact that the privacy is a big deal. I stopped going to kind of community functions because I don't really want to talk about basketball 24/7. Like, I don't mind.
You? There's hope. There's hope for the listeners.
No,
Harold
no,
Katz does not want to talk about basketball.
hold on. Let me be clear. Sometimes I just want to sit and kind of be like Oren and Poppers and do nothing. I just don't want to. I kind of want to just leave me alone. In my head, I'm always, games replay 24/7. It's like sometimes it's a bad movie, So, but sometimes if I'm like, I'm just trying to go to synagogue and pray and go home. I don't want to find, I don't want to have to answer a question of why we couldn't handle that strap on Thursday. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I got enough of that from my wife when I got home that night.
The best is like a question that like you actually would never even know the answer to. Like, even if you could speculate, like if they'd be like, well, why did Gabe miss that shot? And like, there's actually no answer to that. Like maybe he missed it because he's tired, or like maybe he's confused, or and like people really are like, they expect you to know the answer, and you're like, this is ridiculous.
What's crazy, Adam, I always kind of say, well, are you kind of thinking he did it on purpose? If you're not thinking he did it on purpose, the question's kind of dumb. It's not like he went, yeah, I'm gonna miss this one because
I'd love to miss this shot right now.
Yeah,
That's why I'm here.
Great, because it's a 1-point game with 30 seconds to go. This would be awesome. So it's not, sometimes you just want to be left alone in your own thoughts. And so I kind of do appreciate that, what you're talking about, because especially when you're alone with your family or whatever, you just, it's, you don't always want to be on 24/7. And so now what exactly are your responsibilities here with the Ravens? And is it easier? I guess you're only a few weeks in, but is it easier? Let me put it this way. Is this the easiest Shabbos transition job, Saturday transition job, Sabbath transition job that you have? In other words, most of your responsibilities are Sunday or the rest of the week before Sunday? And
Yeah,
not
I think from a Shabbos perspective, obviously which was definitely a thought. It's gotten easier. It's one team. There's not that many games. People forget football. This isn't like a baseball season or a basketball season. There's, not that many games. I'm only really traveling with the team on the road a few times, like maybe 2 or 3 games instead. I think they're, instead of 8, so which is nice. I'm going to try and do the West Coast games because they fly a day early with the team. So like Los Angeles Chargers and the Niners, they'll fly like a day earlier. So I'll be able to fly on a Thursday instead of a Friday night for a Sunday game, which is great.
I'm having to struggle through that 49er Ravens game, huh?
Yeah. And then, I think I've also built up a reputation of like, I keep Shabbos. So like, that's just what it is. It's like you come with it. Whereas I think in other jobs, I came with it, but not quite. Like you sort of knew about it, but you didn't really know about it. You'd find out about it. It would come up. I'd obviously be very open and transparent about it. But now it's like, I tell people all the time, like it's something that I thought would be like a huge weakness, and it's become like this huge strength because it's like really distinguished me. It's like, here's this guy, he's so disciplined, he will never eat the pork. And they're like, they can't get over it. And I'm thinking like, this is not even like a desire of mine. Like I don't pass by like Chuck E. Cheese's and be like, I want the cheeseburger. Like they don't, but it's amazing. My favorite story of all time about this, and cut me off if you know it. Do you know the story about Ben Bronfman and Puff Daddy?
I may, but sure, possibly.
I'll tell you, you'll love it.
Yeah,
you'll love it. It's quick. Ben Bronfman, famous lawyer, Orthodox lawyer, big trial attorney, wins a lot of criminal defense cases, excellent attorney. And Puff Daddy, I think at the time he was P. Diddy or Sean Combs. I don't know what he was going by at the time, but big entrepreneur. He was in this big gun case with Jennifer Lopez. And Ben Bronfman there's like an RFP. They're like looking for like who's the right lawyer for this trial. So Puff Daddy and his team, they arrange like all these meetings, and he's really impressed with Ben, and he decides he's going to hire Ben. And Ben says to him, he goes, I'm the right man for this case. I think I'm going to win this case, but I'm just telling you right now, I'm 24/6. Now, if there's an emergency, this is how you get a hold of me. I don't remember what it was. It was like you fax me or you call a buddy of mine and he'll come over to me on Shabbos. And if I decide that it's, worthy of me picking up the phone for an emergency, I will call you back. But 99% of the time, like I'm not going to be calling you back. I have other people, and I've set up all these different procedures. I think anyone who has to theoretically work on a Saturday has to set up some sort of understanding of like how you could get a hold of them if they had to be. And it's like a month into the engagement, and Ben Bronfman Friday night, he's, Davins Kabbalah Shabbos, comes home and his phone is like off the hook. And it wasn't like caller ID at the time. And he thinks it's Puff Daddy, but he doesn't know. And his phone is just ringing, ringing, ringing. Wakes up the next day, sleepless night, right before Shachar, his phone is ringing, 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 doesn't pick up the phone. He's like, I don't understand. I told this guy I'm 24/6. Like, I know how this works. Like, what the hell is going on? He describes it as like the worst Shabbos of his life. Like, he's just like, he's going to lose this client. He doesn't need the money, but like, it's a big high profile trial. And Havdalah comes, and like the second, like the emergence of the stars or whatever it is, maybe he's took a Chinsky for that guy that says you can go a little earlier on fast days. He like runs to his phone and he calls Sean, and Sean picks up on the first ring, and he's like, Sean, like Puff Daddy is like, dude, like, I know you've been calling me, but like, I'm so confused. Like, why have you been calling me? Like, you know the rules. Like, I'm always here for you. You know that we're going to win the case. Is there an emergency? I'm so sorry. And he's like, don't worry about it, man. Like, I bet my guys $50,000 you wouldn't pick up the phone. And they told me there's no way in hell someone's not going to pick up the phone for me, but you're the only guy on earth that does that. So you just want me $50,000.
It's a great story. It's a great story.
And it's a great story. And I think it speaks to like the respect people have for discipline. And I think I've had so much respect, like from athletes, like Adrian Peterson used to call me like the lettuce boy in Minnesota, because he thought it was so funny. He's like, watch this guy, all he'll do every day is like eat lettuce and like Nutri-Grain bars. Like, it's all he does. It's all he does every day. And like, he just thought it was the funniest thing in the whole world. Like, and that is, something that I think you get from coaching, but I don't know how hard the YU team works, so you'd have to tell me, but I don't think people understand how hard athletes work. I'll transition into that. I don't think people have even a concept of like how hard these kids work. And I think when they see discipline in Shabbos and things like that, they see that kind of like this like mentality of like, I will never step over this line. Like, I'm never drinking soda. I'm always waking up early. I am always, lifting these weights. I think about during COVID, it was the Sugar Bowl, Clemson versus Ohio State. Clemson was heavily favored. Trevor Lawrence against Justin Fields. Right. And I was there at 5 a.m. on a Friday for a game that was on Friday night. And the only person on the field was Justin Fields. I promise you, Justin Fields did not need to be on the field. No one was asking him to be on the field. That was just him. That was what he was doing. And again, it doesn't always happen that way, but he threw like 5 touchdowns. They blew out Clemson. They lost to Alabama, but that was a crazy stacked team. There's a certain discipline, there's a certain level of commitment with athletes that I don't think anyone really appreciates. It's not a wake up one day and eat Fruity Pebbles and like, this is my life. Like, it's like a crazy commitment.
I've kind of said on this, on previous shows, like, I don't think people get how good you have to be to play at YU. We kind of get film from like kids like you in high school, Adam.
What? You would be so proud of me. I'm on this. Well, I'm not anymore, unfortunately. I can't play any fantasy sports, but I was in a fantasy football league with a bunch of guys, 80% of them. Right. These kids, I'll give them some credit. They started at Hafter and, they played at Hank, and like they were, they're good. They're not great. And I mean, their inability to like appreciate how much better the YU teams were and the commitment, and like, they're like, oh, I could have started on that team. And then I would secretly text Elliot, because Elliot had coached some of these kids, and he'd be like, that kid would not have made the team. Please don't tell him I said that. But he like would not have made the team physically. He's like, oh, I would have started. I'm better than him. Oh, you see him. And I'm like, you guys are so embarrassing. Like, am I the only person here that could say, like, if I played against these guys in high school, I would literally have my pants down? Like, it's great. I'm like, proud of them. Like, I'm so happy for them. Like,
really I agree with you. We get a lot of film. I don't get to see them until Elliot wants some confirmation on a kid, or Ellie sends it to me and say, hey, Coach, Dad, did you see this? Or he'll say, Coach, could you just watch this kid for a second, or something like that. So, but I get I get probably 10% of what we get, because those are kind of what we take seriously. And then they're the ones, that he sends to me and go, what's the coach thinking here? What does he think we do here? And I think it's kind of unique to the Jewish community. Like, I don't, when I was at Goucher, we didn't have people in the stands go, I could play here. You know what I mean? Like, it's unique. The Jews have
That's so true. You're right. I've never met like an Ohio State kid in the fans who's like, I could be playing football out
Yeah,
there with
right.
these
Like they
guys.
kind of know. They kind of know. The Jewish kid, believe me, I was a 2-year starter at Hank. I know.
Yeah, I
You know,
know I could have started. I'm like, you couldn't
yeah,
have like wiped the floor. Like, it's embarrassing.
yes, yeah.
I think there's some insecurity. There's has to be some psychological insecurity with some of these kids. And like,
I used to get a lot with Donnie. They just look at Donnie and go, "How the hell's he playing?" You know what I mean? And as I told Donnie when he was a kid, just ignore the noise because everybody's going to say a lot of stuff. And when you, and this is what I would say about a lot of athletes in both the pros and cons. When mentally you're playing at a different level than everybody else,
yep.
there's a comprehension problem. Like they won't see what you see. They can't understand what you understand, and they'll never know what you're bringing to the table, so to speak, if you know what I mean. And that could be parents and players, and then you talk to an opponent and go, well, that kid there, he was our top of our scouting report because we have to cut off the head of the snake. You know what I mean? Like, and so and a lot of people don't get that, and that's fine. And you just have to teach the athlete that it's all noise, and you have a job to do. So I appreciate the discipline part of that. It's like the Bill Gates thing where he had this futurist or something, and they offered him $500,000 to do their thing on a Saturday. And I hope I get this story right. And he said no.
I
And
heard
then
this story. Yeah.
they went in and offered him $1 million. And then Bill Gates actually called him or something like that and said, we're going to give you $1 million, or what you name the price. He said that, and Bill Gates ended up saying, I just want to talk to somebody who could not be bought, who had something in the world
That was not for sale.
that was not for sale, right? And so there's a great value with that. Let me ask you this question, because did Tamir and all that stuff have any effect on you in regards to athletics, or that's just a sidebar?
I think probably more of a sidebar. I mean, I loved it. I loved watching him play. I thought that was awesome. I went to so many of his games and definitely, rooted for him. I think it definitely, had some effect. Hard to probably qualify. I haven't given it, too much thought. He's such a great person. Also, just in general, he's such a mensch and a good guy. But I think, I think we're all influenced by our surroundings and seeing people reach in different levels, especially in this avenue. I don't think it's a stretch to say that he's had influence. People, we get inspiration from wherever we can see it. And sometimes we don't necessarily attribute it to a specific instance, but it's there. I went to all those TA games, I watched him play. I remember it, and I remember being excited, and I watched him play at Towson, and, I mean, those were exciting times. I remember him being on the cover of Sports Illustrated and, being ranked by ESPN so high, and, all those great things that unfortunately injuries derailed, but I think
the Shabbos thing, did that ever, when you're going like, well, if I do this, did that ever come, or that never really came in? Because I think Jacob and Ryan are going to have that effect on kids in their next 3-4 years, so to speak. Not some 8th grader, or not some 8-year-old, but probably a 9th grader or a 10th grader. And I think you were probably still in grade school or something at that time. So I wonder how long that effect lasts, if you know what I'm talking about. Like, I believe that the kids who are playing basketball right now in high school were all up in the YU basketball from 5 years ago. It was like their thing, and they, Gabe Leifer was real, and that's who they wanted to be. They didn't necessarily want to be Steph, because that was our, like you said before, that was our community, and so it's just an interesting thing for me, because you're in a very unique spot. Not that you're the only Shomer Shabbos person in a job where there are not a lot of them, but you're in a sense, you're in professional football where there's probably one of them.
There's very few. And I try to, it's hard. Like I try to not play like the role model game or like the one of one game, because I think it puts like a lot of pressure on someone, for specifically me, to like be something that maybe you can't be, or not like the way that you want to be viewed. But also there's like a lot of people that like probably would not approve of like some of the things that like I would do. Like they'd say like, even though that's interesting that like you stayed in a hotel by yourself for Shabbos, well, like, well, there was no minyan and like you didn't like do X and like you weren't with community. And like, I understand that, you know, I'm open to that. There are people in this community here that would probably be like, well, I don't see why that's such a great thing. Maybe that's not a Kiddush Hashem, or maybe that's not a great thing. And
I
I'm
can
sure
vouch.
you've seen things that people have said about Ryan and
Sure.
about
Jacob.
Jacob,
Yeah,
you know, like that have
I,
not been pleasant or kind. Now, my policy on these things is like just stay the hell out of people's business and like,
right.
you know, just take good things from when you can and admire what you can. And you don't need to take everything from everyone. But for me, from the Jewish perspective, it's like, you know, I definitely recognize that it's, you know, interesting and that it's unique. And I have, you know, I kind of know who I am, you know. I think it goes back to kind of what you were saying about the athlete. Like you really gotta, as you get older, realize you got to stay in your own head. You got to play your game. You have to know how to find your skills. You got to work really hard. There's some tenets to getting it done, but like at the end of the day, like it can't be about what everybody else thinks you should do or what you should be, or
No.
you're never going to be satisfied. You'll be on this like tour chasing people's, you know, court of public opinion. You're just not going to win. So you got to just do what you think is right.
To your point, Adam, um, before, you know, about how hard you have to work. I mean, I think, you know, to be able to shoot the basketball, just like Sim, for example, I mean, that's thousands of hours alone in the gym, nobody around you. You know
Yep.
what I mean? It's thousands of hours, and it's a lot of a lot of debilitating moments sometimes because you know you're supposed to take the big shot and you miss the big shot. You have to learn how to deal with that kind of failure, and 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 it's a lot of work. And I think the people, you know, sitting in whatever that hot dog place is over in Teaneck,
They don't
you know,
get that. And I
with,
think it's interesting as a parallel to sort of success in the sports industry, at least at, I think most people at my level, not everybody at my level, but most, is that they have put in those thousands of hours the same way, just like in their job.
yeah,
You know,
that's
when I was trying to sort of get a job with the Vikings after really have been there for 3 years as an intern, I had a lot of access to Kevin because I was working there, intermittently. But once I started working at the law firm, I found it was like much harder to get a hold of him because he was just busy and we weren't working on the same things. I was working in capital markets at a white shoe law firm in New York City, and he was running a football team in Minneapolis.
right.
And I started realizing that I couldn't get a hold of him. It was like really hard. I'd say like, hey, can I meet you on November 6th? And he'd say, sorry, I can't meet you on November 6th. But I started realizing if I lied to him and I said like, hey, like, can I meet you in the month of November? Because I think I'll be in Minneapolis anyway. It like gave him like less pressure to like say yes. And he'd say, yeah, that actually sounds good. I'll get back to you later with an exact date. And when he would get back to me, I would book a flight the night before. So if he'd say, hey, November sounds good. Here's November 14th. Here's the date. I would book a flight for November 13th and I would fly in for November 14th. The problem with this strategy is that he thinks that I'm in Minneapolis. So because he thought I was in Minneapolis, he had no problem canceling on me. On 4 different occasions, he canceled on me in the air or when I was taxiing in Minneapolis, and I literally just booked flights back to New York City. And I was like, oh yeah, no problem. I'll see you next week. Oh, no problem. I'll see you next week. Oh, no problem. I'll see you next week. So, people look, I think, sometimes at me or even folks in certain positions, and they're like, oh yeah, like you just like go to law school and you just like do this. Like, I'm not saying everybody has to have like those type of strategies and those hours and that amount of capital and all the things to do it. But like those are the types of that's my, thousands of hours in gyms, shooting jump shots.
Yeah, but Adam, it's also you're paying the price at $7 an hour.
Yeah, for sure.
So the White Shoe Law Firm is great, but you put in all this invested time. When Kevin went to the Bears, was there any idea, any kind of thing like I'm going to the Bears?
Yeah, I think we had spoken about that, but I mean, we'd been together for 8 years, and I think to his credit, he was kind of like, I really think you should see other leadership styles and methods. I think a good coach does that. A good coach understands like what the person needs, not what's best for them. I think he's like, I know what I can get out of you. It'd be great to bring you to Chicago, but like, why not do your own thing, meet more contacts, do different things? And, I'm blessed to be talking to him almost every day.
And what's the
Just
goal? And what's the goal now
for me or for him?
for you?
For me, I don't know. I feel like we're all on like that treadmill, wondering
Yeah,
like what's next and where you're gonna go. I feel like I've already jumped a couple lines a little bit earlier than I would have expected, just because, Kevin was so forthcoming and
right.
helpful in my career and developing. And, when you're with the right person who wants to mentor you and really cares about you and leans into you, I mean, there's nothing better than that. I think that's what coaching is all about, right? A coach can
Well,
take that player to the next level. And I
did you
think,
did that come with tough love?
oh yeah, it came with a lot of tough love. It came
Yeah.
with a lot of, that's the wrong way to do it, or that you're not thinking about this right, or yeah, you got to stay up
Like, Adam, what the hell
all
is he
night.
doing?
Yeah, like
Adam,
Adam, like what the hell is that, dude? Like that's like I'm here. This is the line. It's above the line or below the line, and that's
right.
below the line. There's no on the line. You're either above it or below it, and like you need to always be above it. Like just so many different, just
I mean, I think the key, something like that, Adam, and I tell this to assistants all the time and young coaches, the key is to not make that mistake a second time.
yeah,
Like every coach in the world, I'm sure Kevin's like, cool, Adam, let's just learn from this so we don't have to do this again. And
yeah.
then and then if in fact you do it the next time, it's like, dude, we were just through this 6 months ago.
Yeah, you can't burn through the same mistakes, or you're not listening, or you're not paying attention, or your effort's not there. And I think what's also interesting about sports is like you learn that next man up mentality. And that's obviously true in a lot of arenas, but certainly in the business of sports too. Like, I mean, there are 10 million people on my left, block that would want to have the job. So if you're not doing the job, someone will take the job. There are a lot of really talented people out there that are willing to do that. And I think sometimes we overrate how much talent matters sometimes. There are a lot of other pieces to it that are not just talent, like you were saying about fundamentals or teamwork or your ability to listen or just be in it. I mean, I'm sure you could name me plenty of players who you believe were really, really talented that just never really made anything of themselves.
You know, I coach a lot of them. What does that say about me?
Yes, I don't know.
They don't answer. Hey, I know that these two guys are huge fans of yours, so sometimes I let the puppets talk a little bit. So Muppet number one, AD Glickman.
I love
Well,
it.
first
Everything.
off, I definitely want to be sensitive to your time. I know it's a busy season right now, but we really appreciate having you on. I really enjoyed the conversation. Hope it's first of many. Um, I've had the pleasure to be around Coach Katz when he's interacting with players, and they always ask him for how do we get to the next level? What's your one piece of advice? And I think I think Coach usually shares the same message over and over again: hit the gym. So for that person who really wants to make a name for himself and shoot to be an executive one day for a major sports franchise in America, where's their gym? Where's their point A in your opinion?
I think you can go probably in a bunch of different directions, but I think it's probably very similar. Like you have to be willing to work in a way that others are not, you know? You have to be willing to send more emails and fall on your face more often. You got to be totally, totally fine with failing and people just ignoring you and not being interested in you and not giving a crap about you and turning you down and slapping you around. I mean, we're on this podcast talking about a lot of successes, but I mean, boy, have there been a lot of, Coach Katz was just talking about some of the tough love. Like there are a lot of failures along the way. People just don't talk about those and they don't emphasize those as much. They should, but they don't. And I think the reality is like, you have to show people that you care. And that's really hard to do nowadays. People do not do a good job of that. They say they do. I speak to 4 kids a week that reach out to me on LinkedIn that tell me they want to work in sports. And this is how the conversation goes. I really want to work in sports. Well, what are you interested in? Well, I really want to work for the Yankees, the Mets, the Jets, the Giants, the Liberty, the Knicks. I'm like, so you're restricted to New York and you only want to work in New York. I said, like, this isn't going to work. I said, maybe it will, but like this attitude, like your attitude already has like indicated to me that like you're not really serious about this, because I know someone who would give up like their left foot to work in Iowa State's athletic department for $4 an hour for the next 3 years. And that person's already smarter and better looking than you.
Worked in
So
college. I worked in college for free, Adam.
why
Not
not?
all. That's how I kind of start. Like you have to be willing to do that.
you have, and then I always tell people like it's just not for everyone. People think it is, but it's just not. Like you have to really be willing to do things like that. And I think that's how you get ahead to being an executive. And you meet the people that are running these teams. They're pretty impressive. It has not been a disappointment so far. They're good people. They're smart. They care. They give back. They're helping people, and they're really smart and capable. And I think the only way to do that is to work really hard. There's no shortcuts for any of that kind of stuff.
And yeah, I had a second
Go ahead.
question.
Go ahead.
Go for it.
You want to go, Pop?
Go for it.
Oh, okay. Well, first off, it's great for me to be able to ask these questions to Adam, because in the last few years, I've been meeting your brother, Brian, and have been asking him to relay these questions to you. It's most likely that he's not doing that. Brian was in my brother-in-law, Yonah Heller's class in Rambam. So
I love that.
there's your Jewish geography nut right there.
Yonah used to always bounce the ball before he would hit the layup. It was a huge mistake.
He was
Stop bouncing the ball. Like they pass him the ball by like the block, and he would bounce the ball. Like just
Yeah,
put
my
it up.
recollection is and layups don't always go in either.
No
So
one, no one was the better player. Anyway, obviously, Coach touched up on the fact that it's a lot more convenient for you transitioning to the NFL with Sabbath observance. But obviously, with the Jewish holidays this year, they fall out on a lot of NFL Sundays. Has that been a challenge? Have the Ravens been understanding when it comes to that situation?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like that's like what I come with at this point. I tell people like I'm 24/6, but you'll think I'm 24/8. Like I like when people are like, oh, are you working on Labor Day? I'm like, what are you talking about? Of course I'm working on Labor Day. Are you working on MLK Day? Yeah, of course. What the hell does that mean? Yeah, I'm working on MLK Day. Like what? Like I don't even know what they're talking about when they tell me it's like a federal holiday. Like I really, again, like that's me. I can't say that's everybody. So like, but like that's the attitude that like people that are winners like have on these things. It's like, what? There's an off day. Where's the off day? What are you talking about? Why? Like, there's not even like I didn't even engage in a discussion with the president of the Ravens about if I was working on Monday. Now, did some people not work on Monday? Sure, but like me personally, no. I don't think about stuff like that. So I email out in the beginning of every single year, Rosh Hashanah, Sukkot, and Yom Kippur. This year it's on holidays. Two of them are road games, which is actually a good thing. So I'm just skipping those two. And it's kind of like take it or leave it at this point. It's like it's a non-negotiable. So it's not like I think thank God I've sort of just like passed that benchmark at this point, if that makes sense. I'm not saying that I could get every job this way. I'm not saying there wouldn't be people that would be pissed about it, but at this point it's like the work product is there. Who's coming in earlier than me? I don't know very many people. Who's leaving later than me? I don't know very many people. So because I miss a Saturday, which people are usually off anyway, I'm writing more emails. I'm generating more revenue. I'm lowering more expenditures. I'm helping out more often. I'm meeting with more people one-on-one. Like I'm doing all the things that you wouldn't think someone would do in a regular 5-day work week. So like, it's about effort, right? Like that's what it always comes down to.
Sunday's really busy for you, or no? It's kind of game day.
I get there at 9 a.m. and I'm meeting with the visiting owner at some point, and making sure President's Suite is fine, and taking some people to the field if they want to see it that matter for whatever reason.
So who's doing that during Yom Tov?
Well, this week, this year, I'm like lucked out pretty much because those are both road games for the ones that I'm missing on Yom Tov. So.
Oh, you're not missing any home games for that?
No, just this year.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, but that's a great perspective. And well, it's not a great perspective, by the way. It's a great work ethic. And I think it comes with, I don't view it as baggage. It comes with the territory when you have something that can't be bought.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's a story. I don't know if I've told this story before, but I probably have. I had a friend who was coaching at Northeast Louisiana State, and he had a Seventh-day Adventist on his team, and the kid was become more religious. Have I told you this story, or
no? I don't know.
And the kid was,
yeah, I think so.
And the kid was becoming more religious. So he goes over to my friend, and the kid's the best player in the league. Was actually drafted by the Wizards. And his name is Ryan Stewart. great player. I don't know if you remember that. I think it was Michael Jordan's first pick, and when he was the GM of the Wizards. And one day maybe I'll tell you a story about that. But Ryan comes, knocks coach's office, and coach, I'm kind of really getting back into my religion, and I don't really play basketball on Saturdays anymore. So can we do something about the schedule so I don't have to play? And Mike, as only Mike could, looks at me and goes, "You still living with that girl, Ryan?" He goes, "Yeah, we're still together." He says, "You still living with her?" He said, "Yeah, we still live together." He goes, "Well, you fix that problem first.
Remember that story, Coach.
Stop living in sin, and then I'll worry about the Saturday." And Ryan moved out, and he rearranged the schedule so he wouldn't have to deal with it. But that's sort of the thing. If there's anything you have to live up to, Adam, it's that. In other words, your non-negotiable is you got to be the paradigm of what you say you are. It's not like, you can't walk in and be a contradiction, because they only need to point at you once.
I had a call today. You'll appreciate this. We're thinking about having a big town hall meeting and it was going to be on Yom Kippur on a Monday. I said, I will run every single thing that you need, but I'm not going to show up on Monday. And they said, well, maybe we shouldn't have it because it's on Yom Kippur. I said, no, you should have it. It's all good. And they said, well, maybe you're not the best representation of this because you're working too much all the time. And that's exactly what you're talking about. You have to be on point on everything else, or the second you're not, it's you're out.
That's right. And if you put this line in the sand, and look, Adam, it's easy to say, hey, I'll be here Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
It's easy to do that because that's what everybody else does. But you sit here and say, hey, this is not who I am. This is who I am. And I promise you, spend a year with me and you'll never regret it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the approach. If you're Oren, that's the approach I believe you have to take. Am I right?
I think it's exactly right. These are my cards. This is what I do. I'm promising you, you're not going to regret 1 second of it. On the contrary, you're going to love it. It's going to be embracing. It's going to be wonderful. I'm going to bring you positive press, and I'm going to work harder than everybody somehow. You're not going to know now, but you will. But you have to really do that.
That's true. And you can't. And if anything, you got to mind your P's and Q's more than you would if you were, just in a law firm.
100%. You got to be much more careful because you're making a promise and you're making a representation that, is intense. But that means you're working on Labor Day. You're not oh, I'm off Labor Day. Well,
that's right. I was the guy when we played Xavier when I was at UMBC. I was the guy on Christmas Eve that went and opened the gym door.
There you go.
Xavier, because what's the Jewish guy do? I'd have done it anyway, but the fact that it was Christmas, I don't care. Doesn't mean anything to me. No, I'm a basketball coach. So I gotta be honest. I'm thinking about what I said before about basketball. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I don't know if it's true. You'll do it. Pop, I'll take your question and then I'll skedaddle from the night.
Yeah, appreciate you taking the time. I want to play off your answer to Oren's question a little bit. How you're getting LinkedIn requests presumably all the time and people trying to network with you. But do you think, or do you view yourself kind of as a role model also, and not just as someone who is a name out there that people want to network with? Because Ryan Thrill, obviously now he'll say, oh yeah, I wanted to be a Jewish role model, but I don't know if that was fully part of the main part of his decision making, in terms of going to YU. Or with me, obviously I had no intention of being a role model. I'm still not a role model, but people look up to me. You're not a role model. Right, or coach, you're a role model, but that wasn't your intention, right?
I am. We're in trouble.
So do you think that is part of your responsibility, almost in an accidental sense?
I think maybe to some extent. I try to not think of it that way. I don't think I have the shoulders to carry that, and you don't want to live your life thinking everyone's watching you and seeing how you're doing things. It's just at least for me, it's very uncomfortable to think about that. But at the same time, I'm not stupid. I understand I'm doing something that is a little bit abnormal, and I'm getting a lot of requests to think about things and talk to people. And, I guess a role model for the things I want to be a role model for, to stand by your principles. Sure. I'll take a role model status for that. You use the word networking. I think I always tell people there's two steps to it. There's networking and then there's relationship building. And they're very different. Some people are really good at networking and they're terrible at relationship building. And some people are good relationship builders, but they can't get in the room. And you need both. Like, you need to be able to like kind of meet people in a weird kind of way and have like a little bit of chutzpah to like talk to them, but then you need to really follow up and like send that message before Thanksgiving. Hey, thinking of you. I tell people all the time, like, doesn't cost any money to have a reminder in your phone before Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, and a few things. Just 20 people that you really respect and care about. Maybe one it's a text, maybe one it's an email, maybe one it's a phone call. It doesn't matter what it is, but like, and then put that in your as a reminder the whole year. And then you end up having a touch point with that person 3 times a year. Like, these are free things to do. These are not hard things to do that people just do not do. And it's just, you know, my boss, Kevin, my former boss, I mean, he told me a lot. One of the things he told me is that like, it's just not that hard to get ahead. Like, it's just not. Sometimes it's just like doing the right thing. Like, it goes back to the earlier conversations about the fundamentals and committing the time. More often than not, the reason people don't do it is because they don't do any of those things. And then they wonder why they don't have the results. Well, you didn't do any of the right things. So, you know, to answer your question, like, if I can be a role model for those type of things about like standing to my principles, working really hard, caring about the right things, going after a dream, you know, representing my faith in a way that makes sense to me. Yeah, I mean, that makes me, I think it's a good thing. And, you know, but to the extent that people criticize it and say like, I'm not doing it the right way, that's okay too. I can stand with it.
I think it's a great thing, Adam, because you're representing your people in a positive way. And I don't care if you're the dog catcher or you know, um, or you know, whatever, sweeping the streets, whatever it is. If you represent your people the way God expected you to represent your people, then I think personally, I'm extremely proud of you. Not only because I've basically known you your whole life, but as a Jew, watching you in the world, and I think you kind of answered Pop's question before you even answered Pop's question. Like, the things you said before about this is what I'm going to do 24/7, 24/6. Like that, and if you're doing what you do, and if people view it that way, so be it. But you're not,
Exactly.
you know, and your principles are what makes you who you are. Otherwise, you know, I say it all the time. Sometimes you got to tell people what you stand for and what you won't stand for.
Yep.
And I think you're living that life. And to me, and I know my children we're all extremely proud of you. And to me, it's great to have you on my show. I'd love to have you again. Maybe after we see what goes on more, you know, during the season, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 13 weeks.
After we win the Super Bowl, we'll have a big special episode.
Okay, well, some of us don't see it that way, but if that's the case,
You better start at least pretending to see it that way.
What's that?
You better at least start pretending to see it that way.
Yeah, I will pretend.
At least when I'm around.
But that's true, Adam, and it's a big thrill for me, and you know, I've always been, and these two guys can attest to this. I've always been about our people and making sure that we put our best foot forward. And in my opinion, and it's my opinion. And by the way, I know the fight that you're fighting with those people in the community because I went through it years ago, both with Tamir and myself. But I tried to stay on off the beaten path so people wouldn't know. You know what I mean? Like it's all noise to me. Like your job is to represent your creator in the best way you can. And I appreciate you coming on and giving us so much time. And I could just tell you from my perspective, not from Adam, the little kid or the teenage boy or the young adult, but from Adam, the man, I could not be prouder of you. And I'm really glad you came on here today. That was awesome for me.
Well, I appreciate it. And it's so good to be here amongst friends. And so much of my sporting background is associated with you. But really more particularly with Shiny Straw. Like, I'm getting like just so many memories of, you know, throwing touchdown passes to Shy and not to Yisrael. But you know, he was doing other things, hitting people probably very hard, and working really hard. And
they are really proud of you. And just to see where you guys have all ended up and what you all love to do is, to me, the best thing in the world.
That is the best thing. That people are really, I think a lot of those
Yeah.
folks have really taken that to heart, doing the things that make them happy, which is really important. But yeah, let's definitely get together again. And thanks everyone for the time.
Great. Thank you, Adam.
Okay. Good luck with the season.
Thanks. See you soon.
So I think just to close it out, Coach, just to answer the viewer question of why we had Adam on, because this is usually an X's and O's type show. I think the lesson is it doesn't matter whether it's on the court or off the court.
Correct.
Hard work is required in all facets to be successful in life.
And I also think it's about, and for me, the goal was really more, you can still be a man of principle and work really hard. And you can either make this about, what I love about Adam is he never makes it about himself. Even when you read his interviews, he tries to stay away from that. So this was more of an insight to, let's get a little bit about Adam, but more importantly, what he stands for, which I'm so impressed with, and about the fundamentals of what you do. The inside the locker room is the same. You have to commit to what you're doing and not be afraid to get knocked off of it.
Right. Philosophy is always the same, regardless of what it is.
Yeah. And so it's a little bit off the path of basketball, but it's kind of like a little backdoor into college athletics and some pro stuff that people would not necessarily know about and think they know about. So I hope they enjoyed that podcast, but we'll get back to basketball right quick, probably next week if we can find a day.
Right. All right, Adam Neuman, great way to kick off season 2. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great rest of your season.
And Oren, I think we have a couple more points we have to make, no?
Yeshiva League Pass.
Let's try that again. Do it the right
Conflict
way.
of interest now?
Do it the right way, Oren. Pop is kind of pissed right now. You gotta do it the right way.
All right. Yes, as always, we want to thank our sponsors, Yeshiva League Pass, run by phenomenal people these days. Wink, wink. And of course, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Am I 2 for 2 right now?
You're good. Is he good, Pop?
I think he's good. Yeah,
He's good. All right, guys. All right, gentlemen.
Thanks so much, always.
And we have a lot to talk about next time too. So we'll get into it as we get closer to basketball season. There's a lot more, including the email I got today. Remind me, and we'll get into that next week.
Correct. A lot of topics open for discussion, as always.
All right, guys. Have a great night.
Thank you.